Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode here. I got a fun and random episode for you guys this Friday because you have been asking me to talk about the Steam Deck primarily for retro gaming emulation. So this is an overview of the hardware as well as a setup guide for EmuDeck 2 because that's primarily what I'm going to be using for this series if I make more episodes. If you guys really want to see different setup guides and reviews of each individual emulator on the Steam Deck, leave me a comment down below because I can't start making them until I know you really want them. So if you guys watch this, you like it and you want more, I'm happy to make it. But right off the top, the Steam Deck is an awesome piece of kit. We have a great D-pad, 2 thumbsticks, the virtual mice, which are kind of strange, I'm not going to lie to you, they're not my favorite, and then our 4 face buttons. This is going to be pretty much enough for almost every single console out there, but if we get into CPS2 and CPS3 stuff, there's not 6 face buttons for the kicks as well as the high punches, so we'll have to work on that later in a different video. Around the back, you got L1 and L2, R1 and R2, everything you need to play pretty much every console, every platform around is here. We even have these other index and middle finger trigger buttons for you as well. So there's a lot of versatility on how you could set the dock up for different things. And that's what I love about the Steam Deck so far is the versatility in the controls. But of course, we have to get stuff onto this. I recommend using a micro SD card for the EmuDeck 2 installation. I just had a spare 128GB one hanging out. I would recommend you do a 512GB. On SanDisk Extreme, I put them in my cameras, I trust them, and I think they'll be fine for this. Only other thing you'll need for this tutorial is a USB stick. We'll get into how to format that in a little bit, but it's going to be important to transfer files. And then of course we have to get that into the deck itself. There is only a USB-C port on the deck as far as transfer is concerned. I will leave a link to this deck below, or dock, it's really hard to say those two things. And you can buy it if you want. I don't make any money off those links, it's just for your help. But we get the power delivery USB-C, HDMI, and 3 USB 3.0 ports that will become important in a moment. But you gotta pop that micro SD card into the Steam Deck, and it does like to sit outside. It's very flush, just make sure that that's all the way inserted with your fingernail. Maybe the plastics are just new and it didn't want to pop in for me, but it was a little bit fiddly. But right off the top, outside of the package, that SD card isn't going to do anything. We need to format it within the Steam OS itself. So go ahead and just hit that Steam button, and you're going to go to the settings, and you'll see from here, if we go down ever so slightly to System and go over, scroll down, you don't see it until you scroll, you're going to see Confirm Format SD Card. This takes about 2 minutes in my experience. I've sped it up, but about 2 minutes later, you're going to see this bar continue to hit formatting, and then it just stops. I will show you where this is on a direct capture as well. If we just hit the Steam button on the bottom left hand corner of the Steam Deck and go over to the settings again, it's at the bottom, not the top. That was my mistake. You go over to System, and now you can see it because it is on a capture card versus the actual handheld. I could format it again at this point in time, but if you want to make sure everything is working well, just keep scrolling down until you get to storage. You'll see your internal drive as well as the micro SD card. If that shows up with storage space right there, it is formatted correctly and you are ready to install EmuDeck 2 onto this. But we can't do that from the Steam OS. We need to go to the desktop mode. So if you go and hit Steam menu and go down to power, you can sleep, you can shut down, you can restart, or you can switch to desktop. That is where we're going to be finishing up the installation for EmuDeck 2 here. So go ahead and hit that. About 10 seconds later, you're going to be in desktop mode. Now I am using a capture card to do this. I open in Google Chrome right here, and using the virtual keyboard, you want to type in emudeck.com. You can hook up a real keyboard and mouse to the dock as well, but I figured I'd show you guys how to do this without any extra accessories in case you don't have them. It's going to ask about cookies, allow it, deny it, do whatever you want. I just hit allow. I'm not going to be browsing much on my Steam Deck. And at the top, you're going to see a download button. Go ahead and just click that, and it's going to show you the page to download the EmuDeck 2 installer. You're going to click on it once, and a pop-up menu is going to show up that says, remember to copy and execute the installer from your desktop. And that is crucial to getting this right, and I will show it to you visually in just a moment, but make sure you follow these directions or else it's not going to work the way you want it to. This is not a hard installation, but it does have multiple steps. Once you've downloaded it, go ahead and close Chrome, and then we'll be able to get right into the file manager. It looks like a folder. This is a special operating system. It's not Windows, it's not Mac, it's Linux based, but you'll understand. Once you open that, you'll see downloads, and we're going to download the EmuDeck.desktop over to the actual desktop itself. This is what it means when it says copy to the desktop. Select move here, and you can go ahead and close that file browser as well, because now you're going to have a window that says install EmuDeck. And if you're doing this on a capture card or multiple monitors, it doesn't like to format to the actual capture card. It'll still be on the deck. So basically just do it handheld. It'll probably be easier for you. This window will pop up, and it's going to be downloading all of the package data to get the installer set up. This takes about, in my experience, 30 to 40 seconds. If you hear multiple minutes, depending on your internet speed, and maybe just let it go. But after a while, this will stop scrolling, and then all of a sudden you're going to get the EmuDeck 2 setup window right in front of you. You get two options, easy mode and custom mode. I recommend easy mode because all of the different granular settings you can change in the EmuDeck software, and this just gets you up and running quickly. If you want to go custom mode, it is extremely easy as well, but I'm just doing this tutorial for the easy mode to get you guys up and running. Select that, hit continue, and on the next screen you're going to see the target drive for your installation. You could 100% put it on internal storage, that's fine. For this tutorial I recommend that micro SD card, so go ahead and select that with your mouse. Don't worry about the fact that it says 64 gigabytes. This is just a static image. It's not reading the size of your card, but select your target and hit finish. Next window is just going to show you all of the things that are installing. It's going to create all of the folders. Takes about 5 to 10 minutes, but through the magic of editing, I'm going to speed up because who wants to sit through that? And it will just finish up and give you one extra window when it is done. You're going to see that this pops up about adding games. You can run the ROM manager from here, but I don't recommend that because we have nothing on the deck yet. And in a few steps, we're going to get to how to add the games via that USB thumb drive. There's more than one way to do it. This is just what I recommend. You could FTP and do all sorts of other associated, more complex things. But if you know how to do that, I'm assuming you don't need this tutorial. If you open up the EmuDeck software, you're going to see a quick update and a custom update, and that'll update the software. But if you go to tools and stuff, you're going to see emulators and tools and all of these different things. Quick settings is where you're going to want to go first. You can have bezels for systems that had them, like Game Boy Advance, things like that. I turn them off. 3D aspect ratio, you can extend the aspect ratio out. I leave it 4:3. CRT shaders, I leave them off. Sega aspect ratio 4:3 or 3:2. Subjective, I leave it at 4:3. Dolphin aspect ratio, totally subjective, I'm going to leave it at 4:3. LCD shader for the handheld, I 100% leave that off. NES and SNES aspect ratios, you got 5:7, 4:3, and 3:2. Relatively subjective, but I leave it at 4:3. CRT shaders for 2D, I 100% will leave it off. You can change whatever settings you want in this menu right here, but now we basically just need to talk about how to get the files over to the SD card that we have prepared with the EmuDeck 2 installation. Like I said, I'm using the virtual mouse, that little touchpad. It's a pain in the butt, but that way I don't have to tell you to get a mouse. You'll see on removable devices, there's a primary, that's our micro SD card. And if we go under the emulation folder, we're going to see multiple different folders. We're going to have a BIOS folder and a ROMs folder. Those are the two that are going to be very important for this. If we go into the ROMs and we go ahead and maximize this window, you're going to see folders for every single emulator that EmuDeck 2 just installed in the previous steps. These are where you're going to put your ROMs. But how do you get files onto this? Well, we're going to have to move over to my Windows PC for that. That USB thumb drive has to be formatted in exFAT. That is what Steam is going to read. If you just click properties, you'll be able to see what your device is formatted as. This is FAT32, so we're going to go ahead and reformat it. Right click, format, and pick exFAT. Now, when you hit format, anything on that USB thumb drive is gone. So if you lose your collection of 1950s German night-night videos, that is on you and not me. Obviously a little bit of a joke there. I don't know what you got on the card and I don't need to know. But go ahead and hit start, and that will format that USB thumb drive that we're going to be using to transfer files to that micro SD card inserted in the Steam Deck. Hit OK, and it's basically instantaneous. But we need to put some files over here. Just confirm via right-click and properties that the file system is exFAT. If it shows anything else, reformat it again because you picked the wrong option. We'll just take something like Super Mario World 2. You want to unzip the ROM, and we'll just drag it to the root directory of the USB thumb drive. Doesn't have to be the root, that's just what we're doing here. And something like Crash Bandicoot 3, I will leave those files in the folder itself. Again, doesn't matter, and because we need BIOS files for PlayStation 1, I will drag those 3 files over as well. This is not a setup guide to get these particular emulators running, but you would want to do it this way. This is just showing you how to transfer the files around so you can at least play these 2 games. Like I said, if you want to see more on individual emulators, just leave me a comment down below. Once you plug that USB thumb drive into whatever dock or other adapter you use to get to USB-C, on the desktop mode, you're going to see mount and open. Go ahead and just click that. It's going to mount that stick and open up the browser window, and everything we just transferred onto it from my Windows computer is now available on the Steam Deck's desktop mode. And you'll see here, since we've already been in the BIOS folder, there's more than one tab opened up. So the first thing we're going to do is copy the PlayStation 1 BIOSes over into that BIOS folder. They just go into the root directory. Any BIOS that doesn't have a folder in there, just put the BIOS in the root. There's more than one way to do it. You can drag and drop. You can click and hit copy, and then click and hit paste as well. Like any sort of browser, there's more than one way to do it. I suggest either dragging and dropping or copying and pasting. Honestly, it really doesn't matter whatsoever. But now that we have all 3 of those BIOS files over, we can talk a little bit more about where to put the games, because if you don't get them in the right folder, absolutely nothing is going to happen. So now that we have those 3 BIOS in the root, let's get a game onto our Steam Deck. If we go over to the Emulation tab right here a little bit further up on the root directory, you're going to see ROMs. This is where you're going to drag whatever it is you need over to the appropriate place. The first thing we're going to do is put Crash Bandicoot in the PSX folder, because PSX stands for PlayStation 1. We'll go back over to our thumb drive, and you can also just drag and select multiple files at once. Use that right click and we'll go ahead and hit copy. This just allows us to do this procedure once, not twice. Go back over to the PSX folder, paste those 2 items in, and because it is a USB 2.0 speed, it's going to take maybe 30 to 40 seconds. But now we got Crash Bandicoot in. Let's do the same thing for Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. We'll just copy that unzipped ROM file over, and don't forget, we're still in the PSX folder, so you just need to go up in the root directory to ROMs. You'll see that file mapping path right there, and go ahead and just look for the appropriate folder. It's really easy, but obviously this is going to be SNES, and that's where we put our Super Nintendo games. It's not going to be SFC like Super Famicom, it is listed as SNES. We paste that one file in. Now we have all the files we need on the micro SD card to start playing these games, but we do have one more step to make it look all visually nice and clean. We're going to open up EmuDeck again, and now we're going to go into tools and stuff and deal with the Steam ROM App Manager. Now, I was not able to get this to capture on my capture card. It insisted on showing the screen on the Steam Deck. You'll get a little warning screen here that says it's going to change the controls. That's perfectly fine, but what we're going to do is we're going to transition from this capture over to my camera. That way I can show you what's going on here. You have all sorts of different options, and the parsers are what's going to add things into your library. You can turn them on, off, whatever you want to do. This is your choice. You should probably just leave them all on though, honestly, because if there's no games in there, there'll be nothing. Click that preview button and click Generate App List. You're going to see it found ROMs in 2 folders, Yoshi's Island and Crash Bandicoot 3, the Japanese version. If you like the art here, and it is really hard to click with your finger on camera, you go ahead and you just click Save App List. This is going to create collections in your Steam Deck, and it's going to have shortcuts to launch the games exactly how you want. From there, you just return to gaming mode, or basically more of the Steam Big Picture OS. Now that we're at the home screen, go ahead and go to your library and hit R1 3 times. You're going to see 2 collections were added, PlayStation 1 with 1 game and Super Nintendo with 1 game. You'll see this amazing artwork in there. Hit A. Hit A again, and suddenly you're going to be playing a Super Nintendo game, Yoshi's Island 2 in this example. I'm not here today to talk about how I think the emulation's doing, how any of that is going on. I'm just here to teach you how to get it running. So if you want to play Super Nintendo games, that's how you do it on the Super Nintendo side. And because it is the Steam Deck as well, there's so many options to articulate. Basically, all of the custom controls can be changed. The defaults all map to basically what I would expect them to be, But once you get past this non-verified screen layout, you can change anything on the Steam Deck. I do love the versatility and how quick it is to remap your controls. And that's what I'm loving about the Steam Deck so far, is just the user configuration versatility in the entire system. Because it is the Steam Deck, you get all of those overlay options as well, because you're just running an application and you still get all of the overlays. So it is really nice. It's impressive how clean and streamlined EmuDeck 2 is, and I can't recommend it enough. But let's try a different game. We'll go back to our collections, pop over to PlayStation 1, and go ahead and select Crash Bandicoot 3. If you want to add more games, just put them in the folders you need, go to the ROM manager and go ahead and populate the list again, and they will show up. You just need to run that ROM manager each time you add certain things. So maybe in this tutorial I just showed you 2 games, maybe do a bunch at once, that way you don't have to keep going back in. But honestly, I'm not going to show you any of the settings in DuckStation. That would be a separate video if you guys want to see it. But everything here is looking so nice, and it's playing exactly like Crash Bandicoot 3 should. I am so far hyper impressed with the Steam Deck hardware. I will say the setup for EmuDeck, while easy, does require a decent amount of steps, so make sure you follow the directions closely. And like I said, if you want videos on individual emulators, how to best set them up, and how to get them best running on the Steam Deck, you gotta leave me a comment down below. But you guys have been asking for Steam Deck content. I try to give you what you want. So if you could do me a huge favor, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.